G'day everybody, Steve here again. I just put together a quick podcast on the seller disclosure legislation being introduced by the Queensland Government. Now it's coming very soon and it's interesting for everybody that's interested in property, but especially interesting for real estate agents. So if you've got some time, have a quick listen to the podcast and hopefully you enjoy it, get something out of it. And this particular podcast we actually generated with AI from the Queensland Government paperwork. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully you enjoy it. Bye for now.
Okay, so you're thinking about diving into the Queensland property market.
Exciting times.
They are.
Yeah.
But before you even think about making an offer, let's talk about a game changer.
Okay.
The new seller's disclosure regime.
Yeah.
This isn't just legal mumbo-jumbo.
Right.
It's about making sure you're armed with all the right info before signing on the dotted line.
Exactly. It's about moving away from that old buyer beware mentality.
Yeah.
This legislation requires sellers to be upfront with detailed disclosure statements and certificates.
Okay.
Whether it's a residential property or a commercial one. It's all about putting more power in your hands as the buyer.
Sound like a win for buyers.
Absolutely.
I'm all about less buyer beware and more buyer beware.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. Imagine I'm eyeing a charming Queenslander.
Okay.
What kind of intel am I going to get up front, thanks to this new regime?
Well, forget just the basic address and lot number.
Okay.
Think of it like this. The seller has to hand over a complete health report for the property.
Right.
They have to come clean about anything that could impact your ownership or use of the property.
Like what?
Give me the juicy details.
Yeah, give me the juicy details.
Let's say you're picturing yourself creating a dream garden in the backyard.
Okay.
Only to discover, after you've bought the property, that there's an easement running right through it, giving someone else the right to use that space.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's my landscaping budget down the drain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This new law helps you avoid situations like that by requiring the seller to disclose any easements up front.
Okay.
And it's not just easements.
Right.
Think unregistered leases, mortgages, anything that could throw a wrench in your plans.
Okay, so no more surprise easements.
No.
What about other things that could impact my use of the property, like zoning laws? I know those can be a minefield.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on the money there. Zoning is covered in detail.
Okay.
The disclosure statement has to include the property's zoning classification, any applications for tree removal, and even whether there are any big transport projects planned nearby.
Like a new train line being built a stone's throw away.
Yeah.
That could be a deal breaker for some,
Yeah.
or music to a commuter's ears.
You got it.
Yeah.
That falls under transport infrastructure proposals.
Right.
And yes, the seller has to tell you about it. They also have to disclose things like if the property is subject to a heritage listing, or, and this is a big one, whether the government has plans to potentially resume the property for public use in the future.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many things I wouldn't have even thought to ask about. This is starting to feel like a real game changer. But
Yeah.
let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
What about environmental factors? Are
Yeah.
those covered under this new regime too?
You bet they are. The new disclosure statement covers a range of environmental factors that could impact your decision to buy.
Okay.
Think contamination, environmental orders, even those pesky neighbor disputes over trees. It's all fair game.
Okay, so I walk into this charming Queenslander viewing, and I'm ready to be wowed. Is it just a stack of papers handed to me with a cuppa? How does this disclosure thing actually go down in the real world?
Well, no silver platter, but you're not far off with the paperwork idea.
Okay.
The seller is required to provide you with the disclosure statement and all the relevant certificates
Yeah.
before you even sign the contract of sale.
Hold on. Before signing.
Yeah.
That's a relief.
Yeah.
No more last-minute surprises right before settlement. This is already feeling way less stressful than I imagined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The goal is to give you ample time to digest the information, ask any questions you might have, and even seek independent advice if needed.
Right.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to big decisions like buying a property.
Absolutely. Knowing this up front could make or break the deal. And it's way better to know sooner rather than later.
Right.
So how about we get into the nitty-gritty? How are these documents delivered? Is it all very snail mail? Or are we talking digital delivery in this day and age?
Good question. It's not just about the what, but also the how.
Right.
The good news is there are options to cater to different preferences.
Okay.
Let's start with the most straightforward. Physical delivery.
So the old school way?
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
Believe it or not, it is
Alright.
for individual buyers, the seller, or more likely their agent, can hand deliver the documents.
Yeah.
Leave them at your residence, or yes, even send them by snail mail.
I guess some things never go out of style, right?
Yeah.
But let's be real. We live in a digital world. What about electronic options?
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
There are actually a couple of ways to handle things electronically.
Okay.
One option is a two-step process.
Nope.
The seller can give you a separate document, either physically or electronically, that basically says, hey, the disclosure documents are ready and waiting for you to view online. Click this link.
So kind of like an email with a link to download the document.
Precisely.
Okay.
And here's the key. That link needs to be active and working from the moment it's provided to you all the way until the auction is finished.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the other digital option? Is there an even sleeker way to do this?
There is, with your consent. The seller can actually send the disclosure documents directly to your email address as attachments embedded in the email body, or again, accessible through a link. It's all about making it easy for you to access the information.
It sounds like they've really thought of everything. But let's talk auctions specifically. Are the rules the same? Or are there special considerations for those fast-paced bidding wars?
You're right to bring that up. Auctions are a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
The golden rule is that you need to have the disclosure documents. By the time the auction hammer falls, that's the moment the sale becomes official.
Up to the wire.
Yeah.
But it gets a bit trickier when you factor in whether someone was a registered bidder before the auction started.
Right.
I mean, they've already thrown their hat in the ring.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
a buyer is registered beforehand,
Yeah.
they should receive the disclosure documents well before the auction even starts.
Okay.
Nice and straightforward.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about those last-minute bidders? The ones who jump in during the auction, unregistered, and end up winning the bid.
Right.
That seems like a tight squeeze to get them all the paperwork.
You're right. That's where things get a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
If an unregistered bidder swoops in and wins, the seller has to ensure they've had a chance to review those disclosure documents before that final hammer comes down.
Talk about cutting it close.
Yeah.
How do they even manage to get the documents that quickly in the middle of an auction frenzy?
Well, for in-person auctions, there are a couple of common methods.
Okay.
The seller can have physical copies of the documents readily available at the auction venue,
All right.
making it easy for anyone to grab a copy and have a look.
Right.
Or they can display a clear and prominent notice at the venue that says something like, hey, potential bidders, the disclosure documents are available online. Scan this QR code or visit this website to view them.
So no matter how you slice it, transparency seems to be the name of the game. Whether you're a pre-registered bidder or a spontaneous auction enthusiast.
Yeah.
But what about the online world? Online auctions are becoming increasingly common.
Right.
Are things handled differently in the digital auction sphere? You know what they say? Everything goes digital these days. So how does disclosure work in the online auction world?
It's all about making sure the information is accessible. The same principle applies. Buyers need those disclosure documents before the virtual gavel falls.
Okay.
For online auctions. The documents, or a link to them, must be available on the same platform where the bidding is happening.
So no matter where you're placing your bids, in person or online,
Yeah.
you've got the power of information at your fingertips. But let's shift gears a bit. We've covered the what and the how of these disclosures. Now let's talk about where to find all this crucial information.
Okay.
Are we talking about digging through mountains of paperwork? Or is it a bit more streamlined than that?
You won't need a team of archivists to navigate this.
Okay.
The new regime is designed to be more straightforward than that.
Right.
The legislation lays out the specific information and certificates required, but it recognizes that you might need to piece things together from various sources.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
not like there's one magical document with everything you need to know.
Not quite.
Okay.
You'll need to know where to look for different types of information.
Right.
For example,
Right.
the basic details, the property address, lot number, that kind of thing, can be found on documents like the title, search, and survey plan.
Those are pretty standard documents you'd get during the home buying process anyway.
Right,
think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then for information about any encumbrances on the property, We're talking about things like unregistered leases or easements that could limit your use of the land. You'd also look to the title search.
Hold on. Can we break down encumbrances for a second? It sounds a bit intimidating.
Of course. An encumbrance is basically any legal claim or restriction on a property.
Oh.
It could be something as simple as a mortgage, or it could be a right-of-way that allows a neighbor to access their property through yours.
Right.
The key takeaway here is that these encumbrances can significantly impact your use of the property. So knowing about them up front is crucial.
You're telling me discovering a right-of-way through your backyard after you've just finished landscaping would be a nightmare. It's like that easement issue we talked about earlier, just with a fancy legal name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now shifting gears to zoning. For information about those all-important zoning regulations, you consult the local planning scheme.
Okay.
It's all available online on your local government's website. Easy peasy.
Digital age to the rescue. Now, what about potential building issues? Those can be scary. Where would a buyer find that information?
That's where the QBCCC Section 47 notice comes in.
Okay.
Don't let the jargon scare you.
Okay.
This notice, if applicable, outlines any unlicensed building work that's been done on the property in the past 6 years.
Wait, back up a second. What exactly is unlicensed building work, and why should I care?
Unlicensed building work is basically construction or renovation work done without the proper permits and approvals from the Queensland Building and Construction Commission, QBCC for short.
Okay.
This can be a major red flag for buyers because it often means the work doesn't meet building codes or safety standards.
Right.
And fixing these issues can be costly.
Yes.
That's why this disclosure is so important. It protects you from buying a property with hidden problems.
Wow. I had no idea that even existed. 6 years is a pretty decent amount of history, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides this QBCC thing,
Yeah.
are there any other potential legal issues that the disclosure covers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The seller also has to disclose any legal action related to the property. Think show cause notices, enforcement notices under the Building Act or Planning Act. Anything that raises legal questions about the property needs to be on your radar.
So it's not just about what the seller personally knows. It's about making sure the buyer has access to all the official records and documentation. No more hidden skeletons in the property closet.
You got it.
Yeah.
And this commitment to transparency extends to environmental concerns.
Okay.
For instance,
Yeah.
the disclosure will tell you whether the property is listed on the Environmental Management Register or the Contaminated Land Register.
Let me guess. Those registers aren't exactly for properties with glowing environmental track record.
You catching on?
Yeah.
These registers flag potential environmental risks,
Yeah.
like contamination. Nobody wants to buy their dream home, only to discover it's sitting on contaminated land. This information, along with any relevant environmental orders or notices, is crucial for making an informed decision.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why this new regime is such a big deal, but we haven't even touched on pools. What happens if the property has a pool? Are there specific disclosures for those too?
You're right.
Yeah.
We can't forget about pools
Yeah.
in Queensland. Pool safety is a big deal.
Right.
If there's a pool on the property, the seller needs to provide a pool compliance certificate.
Okay.
This document confirms that the pool meets all the necessary safety regulations.
So no diving into a pool that doesn't meet safety standards.
Exactly. And if the seller, for whatever reason, doesn't have a current pool compliance certificate, they need to be upfront about that too by providing a notice of no pool safety certificate.
So many forms and certificates. It's a lot to keep track of, but I'm already feeling more empowered knowing all this is out in the open.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, we need to touch on a topic close to my heart: body corporates. What specific information needs to be disclosed for properties that are part of a body corporate?
You're right. Those body corporate rules can be a whole other world.
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good news is the new legislation addresses this head on.
Okay.
For body corporate properties, you'll need a copy of the Community Management Statement,
Right.
or CMS for short.
Okay. Break it down for me. What exactly is the CMS, and why is it so important?
Think of the CMS as the rule book for living in a body corporate community.
Okay.
It outlines all the rules and regulations that govern the property.
Right.
Everything from pet restrictions to noise limits to how often you need to mow your lawn.
Essential reading for anyone even thinking of buying into a body corporate.
100%.
Yeah.
But just as important as the CMS is the body corporate certificate. This document gives you a financial snapshot of the body corporate, outlining things like annual contributions, special levies, and any outstanding fees the current owner might owe.
So no hidden financial surprises waiting for you after you move in. That's a relief.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And again, transparency is key.
Right.
If the seller can't get hold of this certificate for some reason, they need to be upfront about it and explain why.
Right. Transparency really seems to be the golden thread running through this entire new disclosure regime. This might seem like a lot to take in, but honestly, it's incredible how much thought and detail has gone into this new legislation. It's a real win for Queensland buyers.
Couldn't agree more. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about empowering buyers to make informed decisions and protecting them from potentially costly surprises down the road. It's about making the property buying process fairer and more transparent for everyone.
And that's a wrap on today's deep dive into the Queensland Sellers Disclosure Regime.
Yeah.
Uncovered a lot of ground. But remember, knowledge is power. And in the world of property, informed decisions are the best kind.
If there's one thing to take away from this deep dive, it's this. Don't be afraid to ask questions, read the fine print. And if you're unsure about something, seek professional advice. This new law is here to protect you, the buyer, so make sure you use it to your advantage.
Until next time, happy house hunting.